Hello. Happy Friday the 13th.
I know, right? What a wild few days again. I think I say that every
Uh,
time
yeah, I know every week it's like, holy shit, just when you think it couldn't get any stranger, welcome to the real world, kind of thing steps in.
Yes, yes. It's an exciting time to be alive. And today, I think it makes a lot of sense to just talk about what we're seeing out there in the world, some current events, some current energies, and whatever else comes up. But I know one thing's definitely up in the sky.
Don't look up. Don't
Don't
look
look.
up.
Oh my gosh, it's like a movie. It really is.
And that is so true. And of course, we know we're talking about drones. We're hinting at these, whatever they're calling them now. They used to be UFOs, and then they changed the name to UAPs, and now they're just calling them drones. So it's interesting how the psychology plays out when you change the name of something.
Mm.
Because that's the one thing I do love about a lot of different healing modalities or things that we learn is when they rename something, and not use an old historic name.
Mm.
Because it creates a whole new file system. We don't have any files associated with what we would call UAPs, which is what they're calling UFOs now. But
Oh,
we do have the history of UFOs.
we sure do.
All right, so it kind of makes sense, especially like with what we've been seeing on media with movies associated with UFO invasions, abductions, and all of that
Independence
stuff.
Day and stuff, yes.
Oh my God! And even just like the Don't Look Up, I totally forgot about that until we just
Oh,
started
me
talking
too.
about it.
Yes.
That movie was fast. That was about some killer comet or meteor or something. But it's very similar to what a lot of people are experiencing now. Is this sighting of these objects in the sky? That they're just saying are drones. And I don't know how many of you out there have seen any in your location. I haven't seen any, but then again, I haven't been out looking up. So they could be there. I don't even know.
I haven't seen any where I am, but I know people are posting about it in my areas. They have seen it. I haven't been out much either. But it's interesting because people today I was seeing, and I saw some videos of them being very large. They're calling them drones the size of SUVs, and even some pictures where they look like fighter jets.
Yeah.
So
hmm
I think some of the images and the videos we're seeing, they're far enough away that you can't see the actual size of these bright lights
Yep. And it's interesting because they do have red and blue lights on them, from what I understand, is they
on
look
many
like,
parts. Yes.
yeah. And usually, if you look at the history of UFOs, that was always a differentiation. Is
Oh,
if you see a bright white light that's flying that doesn't have blinking lights on it, you knew it wasn't an airplane.
yes.
So if these drones or whatever are now mimicking, that light flashing of an airplane, it's definitely different from the historical what we would call UFOs. So the bigger question is, where are they coming from? And
Yes.
what's their purpose?
And I
Um,
saw, so much just watching the post online. At first, it was curiosity, wonder, excitement. And then the next, people have been seeing them actually longer. It's not just been the last 2 nights. It's been, and even years ago, some people are saying, like 10 years ago, they saw a lot of these in the sky. So that adds another dimension to it. But I think it's also becoming uneasy for some people now.
yeah.
Some people that are seeing the big size of these, are they jets in the sky? Why are they over my house? It's exciting, but it's also like, what is the purpose of this? Like you said.
And whose are they? And it really just comes, and this is all based on your own unique perspective on things, because everyone's got different histories and experiences and thought processes. And we're not here to say it's one thing or another.
Mm.
It's just let's explore what the possibilities can be. That way we can share information, that we may not have thought of before. And it may give us a different perspective on what this is.
Yeah, so if we start with the media, it appears that they're talking about the ones in government locations. I don't watch the news, so I'm just going on what I see people
Yeah.
saying. Have you heard anything about?
I've just like seen a couple things, reels or whatever, or some Facebook posts. Like Facebook posts are more interesting to me because
I
it's like to me, it's people that
Yes.
are seeing them. They're seeing a lot of them up in the Reading area too, back where I used to live, so Pennsylvania's getting inundated, a lot down in Maryland around DC. Um,
I saw
and it's,
Alabama today. People were posting every city almost in Alabama. A lot of them are having sightings.
wow, so it's just hitting everything now. Wow.
It is, yes.
Hmm. And it just comes down to, is it really extraterrestrials or is it human experiment or humans that are controlling these things?
Yes.
Whether you want to say the government, the powers that be, whatever you want to talk about.
Exactly.
So that's the bigger question is whose are they?
Yes.
At least from that perspective. And that's up to each one of your own as to what you want to believe it would be or what it wouldn't be. Um, I would just find it fascinating if it really were UFOs. And if they really were UFOs, why is nothing being done?
Exactly. Why is it? Yeah. Nothing is even really being talked about,
No,
you know?
military's not doing anything with them. They're not trying to see what they are. No one's trying to shoot them down. No one's trying to capture them. At
Yeah.
least we haven't seen any of that yet. So I always think it's fascinating. It's what they don't do versus
Hmm.
what they do.
That's a great
Because
point.
if this truly was a UFO invasion, I would imagine our military would be doing something to this,
I
or
would
at
imagine.
least yeah, we'd be hearing something about it. But
Yeah.
all they're saying is just like everything else is, they never really tell the truth. They deny everything is, oh, they're just drones. Oh, they're just drones. Well, whose drones are they?
Right.
And that's the bigger question. And if it is our own government or military that's doing this, what's the purpose?
Yeah. The
What's the
question
bigger
is
picture?
why.
And we don't all really know. And most of the time, we don't know what the purpose is until after it's resolved or after it's disclosed, as to seeing what's going on with this. And then you also have the whole history of Project Bluebeam, documented government programs that this was a plan long, long, long ago,
Yeah.
to have a fake alien invasion in order to once again control the masses,
Yes.
or create more fear that's just bringing that in. Or it could just be a distraction. What else is going on the planet that this is distracting people from? And there's a lot of stuff going on, politically, obviously, with the transition in the president,
Yes.
all the P. Diddy stuff, the Jay-Z stuff pops out. Now all of a sudden, boom, now you start seeing drones everywhere. Is it a coincidence? I don't know. Are there any coincidences? Really not.
No, and even like the Simpsons episodes have
Mm,
shown this is happening, right? And we hear a
yeah.
lot about the Simpsons like predicting everything, and so that's one facet of it as well. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's just I do know my own personal experience, which Fred and I talked to you about prior to hopping on today, has just been like a massive heart opening week and a lot of visions and clarity that I didn't even have before. So I feel a shift. I feel we are at a precipice. So, from an astrology standpoint, we know we have a full moon coming up. We've got the solstice on the 21st.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
it's the perfect time, really, if we were to have something
Yeah.
for it to occur.
And maybe that's part of it because the solstice is huge. If you look at it from an energetic perspective or an astrological perspective, is this idea of like the darkest day of the year,
Mhm.
to where there's more dark than light, sun, so to speak. And then around the solstice, there's like a 3 day window. It's for the three darkest days of the year. And then the light returns, which means
Yeah.
that we start getting more sunlight each day versus
Mhm.
the transition of it stepping down. And those 3 days of darkness, you hear a lot of chatter, people talk about that. Are we going to go through this 3 days of darkness and then everything's going to change? And to me, it's just the 3 days of darkness is a reflection of what a lot of people believe in the resurrection
Mhm.
of Christ. Died 3 days later, he's resurrected. That's the symbology of what the solstice is. So if there's a big energy shift that's coming in with this solstice that's here to awaken and open, like you've experienced, personally, a massive awakening and
Massive.
a massive different perspective, then there may be something that this is part of this process is to distract people from that space. And if you're in a fearful state, then a lot of these activations or upgrades or whatever you want to call it that's coming in could be a little bit deterred or muted because of the fears that's associated with it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you used the word awaken because when we tapped in, you and I, just before we got on to record, I heard we are here to awaken. And and that's what I really want to help people to feel relief in from this episode today, and just have some options for how to navigate, because we are balancing the fear right now and the wonder. So you're right there. You come to the still point in the middle and you get to find your equilibrium and balance. And it's really going to be those of us that can hold the light throughout this journey that are going to create the reality that we desire. And so it's
Yeah.
vitally important for us to do the work and remain calm and experience like what I personally experience of like the things I've waited for forever are starting to happen, clairvoyantly, and just it's been like returning to childhood with like imagination and possibilities. So this is absolutely a beautiful time to completely walk through that doorway.
It is, and you're definitely experiencing the things on a personal level, and I don't know if anyone else out there that's watching this has in the past week. And we keep saying each week it keeps getting more intense, and it does. We got a week, 8 days to the solstice, so there's a lot of stuff that's coming up. There's meteor showers going on. I think the Geminid meteor showers are also this weekend, which is like supposed to be the best ones of the year,
Okay.
which is also fascinating too from an astrological perspective of what is coming in to awaken and to open up. And these drones can do the same thing for you if you view it as such and not in a fearful state.
I mean, what do we have to lose? We don't know what's going to happen. And so why not have
Yeah,
fun as we go about this, and at the very minimum. But I truly believe that we are in a great place. This golden age is upon us, and it's all metaphorical. The 3 days of darkness, I really don't see. I mean, there's going to be some events, but I don't
sure.
see, like in Lemuria and like, end of world and like everyone's gone. Like, I don't see that. I see the eternal nature of us, no matter what happens, we're going to be okay.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of prophecies that talk about that. Like is this future time that we're getting very close to, that we're in the beginning phases of this, to where there
Mhm.
is going to be a massive energetic shift, for humanity to get over the hump of this experience, of really starting to see what truly is important to us as a human versus the materialistic stuff. Pretty much everything that we've ever been told in our childhood is pretty much the opposite of truth,
Yeah. Yeah.
is what we're finding. So there's a lot of, if you want to jump into the whole rabbit hole of these, they're not too deep, but there's a lot of stuff that's been projected that the year 2027 is a huge year.
Okay.
And so if there is a huge year that's coming energetically, and the powers that be know it because they may have access to information that we don't, or technology that we don't, then obviously what's going on is a massive distraction. It's like the final test for humanity, is how much shit can be thrown at us to try to distract us from what our true mission is here, which is to find that balance within yourself and start to get into a higher vibration to be able to choose love in the face of fear. So I think this is a massive test for humanity too.
It's actually exactly what I experienced at the most, just generic level when you use that blanket statement of, walking through that path of fear, to get to the other side. It's just the vibration of calming yourself down and just getting excited about it and just moving through that portal, because this is a portal time. If there ever was a portal time, for me at least, this is the portal of my lifetime.
Yeah,
So I do feel, I've always felt 2025 is the year that nothing's going to be the same after. I mean, we already had that with 2020, and some of the things we've gone through. I think that was really just ramping us up.
yeah,
But I think those have been more enlightened from that experience and have been doing the inner work. This is your time to shine. This is
yeah.
your time to let go of all the density. So many people are having crazy physical symptoms right now. And that is completely something that should be celebrated if you can, because it's
Yeah.
density leaving the body. And, we could say we're all going to fly after this. Again, it's metaphorical, but you're going to feel so much freer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that we've even discussed this too that have been in more of like that still point, the void state, that apathetic state to where they don't feel like doing anything.
And that's normal.
And
Exactly.
that's the cocoon phase. That's the transition of everything that we thought we were, caterpillar, everything that we told that we were, and it gets completely liquefied, dissociated, and broken down to be recreated into your truth. And a lot of people are still in that cocoon phase. And I think what we're seeing now is, especially like with this drone experience, is it's waking people up. It's sometimes it can be good to have to get into that fight or flight a little bit, because then you start to see what's really important to you.
You do.
And so there is a balance. Everything has the capacity to help it to heal. So even fight or flight can be a great way for you to stop and check yourself. Like, what's really important to me? Because if this is life or death, does it really matter what kind of shoes I wear? Or what kind of this I buy, or what kind of it's a whole different perspective. So to me, when I see things like this that can create fear, fear can be a great motivator to find out where your imbalance is. And that's what COVID was in 2020, 2020 hindsight. So we're in it, and this is a 8 year, and we're going into a 2025, which is a 9 year, which is going to be the completion of a cycle.
Exactly. I mean, and I think about, we've had many conversations, just you and I, about COVID and all that, thinking like the
Hmm.
despair that came about after, and the loss of innocence and the anger and all of those emotions. But that was the eruption of the density, right? And on the flip side of that, what I am personally very interested in is the root cause healing, and to realize we are here to self heal. And there's nothing, I mean, I saw a lot of posts again today about fear mongering around, the jabs and shedding, and
Hmm.
how we're all doomed because it's in the food and all of these things. Absolutely not. If you believe that, yes. But I
Yep.
have proof and evidence that we are here to transform, alchemize, and transmute all of this darkness, right?
Yep. Yep.
That's what we're here to do. And you've got to just let the density out of your body to see that so clearly.
Yeah. But if we're constant, yeah, I totally agree. It's what we're here to be doing. So fear is one of our greatest teachers
Yes.
if we see it as such.
Yes.
And that's the challenge, is when the fear presents itself, do we get into that reactionary state, the deep, deep, deep beta brain wave, to where we're just literally in such a deep fight or flight that we can't process anything. The brain's not going to process stuff in that state. But if it allows you to get triggered and to feel that fear and not run with it,
Yes.
and pull yourself back a little bit and go a little bit deeper into what that fear truly represents to you, then we can start to find that clarity and the balance, you know.
Yeah. And we are being gifted right now so many signs. There are just, today on my walk, I saw so many signs. So I also heard the title. I could write about 10 books from the, titles I hear in my head on my walks. But simply, we're here to notice was what I heard today. And I have just been having so much fun noticing whatever is happening in my world on a daily basis. The more you just are noticing and observing, you see signs. I see heart-shaped rocks everywhere. I found like a half of a wing, shell today. And you bring all those things home. Last night, Fred helped me put together a puzzle piece that created the breakthrough that I had of like healing ancestral and relationship things that have been in my life forever. And then I had almost what sounded like a DM, or felt like a DMT experience
Good.
afterwards. So, you know, I am just blown away. And so I've always shared I had OCD as a young child. So I saw how it stole my light. And I was medicated for years on OCD. And then when I became an adult, after I had, when I had kids, I didn't want to be on medication. Then I went back for a little, and then I heard get off the medication. So it was so hard for me to get off the medication, because when you get off a medication like that, your brain like actually like has shocks running through it. It's like you
Yeah.
feel like seizures. So I remember just cold turkey, like moving through that, right? So it's been years now where OCD creeps in at times for me. And it's my practice of living in awareness. And last night, OCD came in big time prior to the breakthrough that I had to try and distract me. So I share all of that for anyone out there that I see a lot of people posting, even in my local groups, of people going psychotic, or,
Yeah.
a lot of mental stuff happening for people. Well, that's coming up to be observed and
Yep.
noticed and released. And so when all those crazy thoughts like came in, just little worries that wanted to keep me doing something else last night, I just noticed them. I gave it some love, and I actually could tell the way they were coming in that something big was about to happen for me. And so it's just been such a ride ever since. And so I truly believe, that's how we heal at the root cause.
Yeah. Is we need to consciously see what that imbalance is,
Yes.
because a lot of our foundational programs we don't remember consciously. Our brain doesn't have the capacity to remember a lot of that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the bigger process, is that when we experience something that's fearful, it's literally your brain is showing you where you have an imbalance, where it only sees fear and not love. So that's why I always look at fear as our greatest teacher, if we see it as such. And that's not to say that now all of a sudden I'm just going to create all these fearful experiences, but whatever needs to happen gets presented to us. So we're looking at a global consciousness issue associated with what we're all starting to experience here. So to me, it's a massive opportunity for humanity to shift in this perspective, but it has to happen one person at a time.
Well,
Can't do it.
absolutely. And that brings up the fact that sometimes when you're feeling the dark energies or the OCD or the worries really strongly, you're picking up on the collective energy as well. So, right now, you might be feeling that because there's a lot of people worried about what's up in the skies and,
Yeah.
what's happening in the world with the politics and all the things. Everything's getting like uprooted right now. And so
Yep.
some of those things are going to really just be lifted out of the ground and transformed forever. Others are going to take longer, and it's just a time of massive transformation. So, I don't even know. I just that thought just flew.
And I think the majority of the people on this planet are not going to be here to wake up.
No, that's true too.
I mean, it'd be beautiful to think everyone can wake up and it would be great, but from a statistical perspective, it's probably not going to happen that way. It's
No,
really going to be a
absolutely.
smaller group, a smaller percentage group of people that are really here to hold that vibration that allows other people access to it. But there's a lot of people that are here that just wanted to be here to experience what this massive shift in humanity and Earth really is.
Mhm.
So they've just come in to take the role and to show everyone what not to do.
Well, and they play such a role as a supporting actor in our movie or our process.
Yeah,
We're all assisting each other, which is so beautiful, as you just see. What am I here to learn? Every moment of your day, there's a lesson there for you.
yeah,
And we've also heard a lot of people ask us, what's going to happen to my loved ones if there's an event or if there's a new earth and they're not going to the new earth with me. And so a lot of it's metaphorical. It's like when you could use a radio station. If you don't like listening to rap and you like listening to country, and you turn that dial, you're on the country station. The rap one's not even in your reality, right?
yeah.
And so that's one way you can look at it. But it's also like if you leave a relationship and you just don't have contact with someone anymore, they're still alive, but they're not in your reality. So it's not such a bad thing. You froze for a
Oh,
sec.
I know we're getting hit with this retrograde shit quickly.
It's been wild.
Oh, thank God it goes out on Sunday and a full moon on Sunday too. So it's going to be a fun. weekend,
Well,
aftermath
that
of something.
too, then, right? All of this is coming up for the full moon, which is a
Yep.
completion. So you can expect that Sunday, the 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can expect between that's the next 2 to 3 days, um, a lot to be like a pimple kind of bursting on Sunday, just notice that. And the more you can let go of things before Sunday, you're not going to have that eruption as much.
Yeah, it's a perfect time, to intend to release these things that are no longer serving us. All these pre-programmed fears that we've had associated with so many different things in life is we're starting to realize, that the bulk of what we've been told isn't true. So we're starting to see what is true.
Yeah.
And that's looking at the other half of the coin. And it's very symbolic, even where Earth is in relationship to the universe. We're crossing that central plane to
Yeah.
we're going into a half of the universe that we haven't seen in 26,000 years. So it's almost like we're seeing the other side of the coin. We're right on the rim of that coin right now, transitioning into another side. And that's huge, from symbology as to what we're all experiencing. So this whole drone thing to me is just like a massive test for humanity is to wake up and not buy into the fear associated with it.
Oh, and then when I heard we are here to awaken, I saw a magic carpet, and I've seen that a
Ooh,
lot lately. It was like,
okay.
get on the carpet and that's what my past at least 24 hours has been like. I mean, when you shift into abundance the way I feel vibrationally, I mean, it's kind of like the rose colored glasses. You just don't, even if the crap tries to creep in,
Yeah.
it's just not bothering you, right?
Nope.
So, this is how we get to just inhabit the new earth moment by
Yeah.
moment.
That's all it really comes down to. That's really all we have is the moment,
Yeah.
from that perspective. And even the moments, technically in the past, if you look at it from a quantum perspective, and how things are created in our existence and then how we're perceiving it, by the time we perceive and understand what was just unconsciously created, we're like nanoseconds or even split seconds in the past already.
Yeah. It's
And
wild.
that's kind of the irony, I think, of what the bigger picture here is. This awakening is to get into that space where we have balance in the unconscious, where it's not preloaded with fear, all the fear that we've experienced in our childhood, based on just what it felt like, based on what we experience. And then your brain creates a program associated with it. So the more that we can find that balance in our unconscious, then we're no longer unconsciously creating everything in our existence. Then we can really start to step into that power to where we can start to consciously create, where we get to choose what we want to create in our life. That's living in the moment.
Yeah. And so it's just so interesting because so much can pop up and we bury some of our traumas. Like if you look back on your memories, you really don't remember much prior to the age of 5.
You only remember what you remember. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean you
right.
remember
Like
everything.
one or two memories at the age of 5. And yeah, it's very little, right? So there's some buried trauma prior to that. And that's really, what is creating your subconscious and the fight or
Mhm.
flight reactions. And so you don't need to know what it is. And so those things for people that have been doing the inner work for a while, those are the things that I know I just released one of them yesterday. Like that was like a
That was a
massive
big one.
cord that just or something got pulled out of me. And so just be extremely gentle with yourself. Extremely. What are you laughing at?
No, it's just a gentle cord that's been pulled out. It's like holy shit, yeah, but it was huge.
It was
Just
huge. And I just had to stop in the moment. And I was telling Fred, I'll share more of the details. Yesterday, my vision went blurry all day. So I did a 4-day fast. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, like, did I harm my eyes? Like, why am I not seeing today? And because I've always had like really good vision. And so last night I had like this breakthrough moment that made me laugh so much. And my eyes, I could feel them healing instantly in that moment. And then after, everything went clear. And so um, that's what happens. I don't even know that when you said pull it out, but that's essentially like when we pull these things out of our body, our health returns. Oh, and prior to that, I was like in the shower and I was like rubbing my eyes. I'm like, gosh, like everything seems blurry. I'm like, I'm gonna take life, like not sweat the small stuff. Like I'm grateful for my vision. Please just bring back my vision. And so I had this right after, like an hour after, my vision came back great. And so, it's just so important to remember that as we release, we just can heal beyond
Yeah.
what we ever thought. Like, I'm so grateful for the clear vision today.
We all have that opportunity, in any given moment is to find that clarity.
Yeah.
But if we're too distracted or we're too worried or too afraid, it's not going to happen. We're dancing on the wrong side of the coin, so to speak. But it's there to show you what the other side could look like.
Yeah, and the other side, like the colors look different now. I was
Mm.
looking at my dog's fur and I'm like, I never saw these orange streaks in his fur before because he's white, right? So I'm seeing like all the dimensions of it. So it's just
I just think
it is
it's like a drug-free trip.
a drug-free trip. It's the magic carpet ride, and
Mm.
that's what we get to experience. Those decisions matter. So if you're gonna like get pulled down into fear at any moment, you're maybe not gonna have that magic carpet ride. Like it's that important to not only do the inner work, but to just find your equilibrium throughout the day.
Yeah. Easy way to find more truth in your life is just do the opposite of everything you've done.
Yeah, you gave me that advice. It's so helpful. So
It's not easy. It's simple, but because technically everything that we're starting to see is, a lot of what we've been told and it's part of the bigger purpose. This is what we agreed to, is to be shown all these false things in order for us to find the clarity and the truth that creates the balance. So that's what we're here for. So step into the fear and not in a fearful way. See it as a tool. See it as your 3-year-old self
mm,
that's in pain. And how do you communicate and talk with a 3-year-old child that's in pain? You don't run away from it.
you don't.
You don't distract yourself from it. You sit down and you have a communication and you talk and figure out what this challenge is that's coming up. And
Mhm.
that's what we're here for, is to find out what that pain is that we don't consciously remember. And it's just going to keep coming up until you're able to see the balance in it.
I just can't stop smiling. It just feels so good to like, I think that's it. Like, if I had any advice right now, it's just notice. People will be saying things that point to their traumas too. So I'm not going to bring in some of the things I heard and just observed today with other people, but what they were vocalizing pointed exactly to where their trauma was. You just have
Mm.
to be able to see the layers, and it's for people that you've had a lot of for instance, I can share there was a person that was yelling at someone else, but they were saying, stop yelling at me, right? And the other person wasn't really yelling at them, but they were yelling pretty loud at the other person. And so I just saw the little child of that person saying, stop yelling at me. The core wound of that person I saw so clearly was they had a parent or someone, I think it was a parent, they yelled at them a lot, and so their whole life, they raised their voice to try and, just as a reaction. This
Yeah,
is someone I've seen the pattern with. So when someone's saying, don't yell at me, there's something to notice.
yeah. And it's ironic that they're yelling at another person to not
Yes.
yell at them. Like if it's
Yes.
so obvious when you pull yourself back and see it.
Yes.
But when you're in the middle of that, rerunning those programs, rerunning those traumas. Always take it back as far as what you can consciously remember in your childhood, and you'll
Mm,
see the creation of it. Usually, we don't remember the initial first 5 years of something happening, but everything that is consistent or repeated afterwards is still a reflection of that original time where it was ingrained, and it still can be also ingrained in your DNA.
True.
That's something that is a genetic thing that we're receiving from our parents. That could be a program that's in there that's also going to start creating scenarios. So there's usually, if you see repeated events in your life where, why does this keep happening to me? It's because there's a program that really is trying to get your attention. So
Mhm.
it will constantly unconsciously create this through different times, different places, different people, because it just wants to be balanced. It's just your 3-year old self that just wants to be held, usually, is what it comes down to, and loved.
Yeah,
Keep it
and
simple.
some of these people that have been in our life for a period that seems well overdue are there to teach you until you get the lesson. And that's
Yeah.
what I just learned, and it's like, and then once you finally get that final lesson that you needed to clear, it's like you can just rest easy a little bit and see that there was no wasted time. This is all happening in divine timing. And when the things come in to clear the big, hooks and cords that have tethered you your whole life, this is what we've waited for. That is
Yeah.
what we are here to do. So, like, people ask us, and we've talked about life purpose all the time. This is our mission. And our mission, you can almost say is just simply to free ourselves. We've never been free here. We're told
No.
America is free, but like now we can see, free in some ways maybe, but
Yeah.
it's definitely doesn't.
Relatively, yeah. It's not what we're being told. It's not the way that it's being portrayed, for sure.
No,
Yeah.
no. So we're here to just free that. And it's beautiful when you can.
Yeah. So if there's anything that comes up this weekend for people, where there's something that you've been processing and dealing with repeatedly, sit down with yourself, find that quiet space and time and start writing out, the history of what this experience is and how many times it's happened, and trace it back to that childhood. And then when you trace it back to your childhood and you see something that you've experienced in that space, try to find out what the lesson is there. What would be the purpose, or how does this serve you? What is this childhood trauma? How does this serve you in your life? And a lot of times, the darker the trauma, the more that it's challenging to see it, because it doesn't feel like it served you anything at all, in your
Yeah.
existence, except for creating more fear. But there is a lesson. Even if the lesson is, I learned what not to do,
Right.
that's still a lesson. And then it can be recognized as such, and then you could try to create another choice that you haven't made before, do the opposite of what you've always done, and then that opens up a new neural pathway for you as well. And then your conscious mind has a choice instead of just the trauma and the fear.
Yeah, it's really a lot of rewiring when you get the big releases. It's like all those new neuro pathways are like opened up. So it's like, whoa, like I'm not even operating the same, That's kind of what happens.
That's what happened to you yesterday with your with what you described is like a
DMT.
DMT journey without DMT, but we realize every cell in our body produces DMT. So we have the capacity to increase the amount of DMT if our body needs to. And DMT just lights up all your neural pathways. So it opens up these histories and memories and thoughts and programs that we've buried because we either, one, don't consciously remember it, or two, we just keep not choosing it or distracting ourselves or running away from it. So it really just opens everything up, so then you can kind of see everything in a much more clear, balanced state.
I think it'll help people to understand. I'd love your thoughts as I still process this. So my vision went blurry all day. Then I had this crystal clear like vision, and then I laid down last night and just I was seeing all of these images. I was seeing big people. It was like a movie screen in my third eye. Big people walking through the woods, and it was coming quickly. It was like a reel, like sped up, and then there was sacred geometry and all these colors and crystals, and I'm like laying in bed and I'm like, this is crazy. I've never in my life seen a movie play in my head. Right. And I'm like, oh my god, because my whole life I've been heard, the third eye is what you want to activate. And I was like, man, I must have had a lot of fluoride as a kid or something. I'm blocked there, and we're not blocked there, but it's like no one's blocked there. But when you allow something to release. Like it feels like it went up through my body. And so, what is the relationship, in your opinion, Fred, like between, we know these eyes show us so much in the world, but
Yeah.
there's this third eye that has the power to take us to a whole new level of existence.
It is interesting because it's funny they call it the third eye,
Yeah.
because, and that's just because the visual sense dominates, most of our senses is the visual energies of things. That's why when people meditate, they close their eyes. So they're not constantly processing and being distracted. So to me, the third eye is more the sixth sense and other senses that we may not even be aware exist. That to me is what our true intuition or third eye is being able to tap into something that we can't recognize with the five senses all the time. There are
Yes.
some people that do visually see things with their eyes that other people don't. Um, the only thing that keeps coming through is I think it was Stephen King in one of his books, is the way dogs smell.
Okay.
Dogs smell is like 1,000 times stronger than human.
Yes.
So the way that he described it is that dogs smell colors.
Oh.
That equates our perception of where our visualness is our strongest sense. We can see a color from a mile away, but a dog can smell something from a mile away.
Well,
So it's
it's
just like
interesting you say that because I've heard dogs see in black and white.
there's a lot of animals that probably do see in black and white,
Yeah.
and it has to do with the rods and the cones of your eyes, where the cones deal with color. Rods are more black and white. Rods are also night vision.
Mhm.
Animals that can see better at night, they have more rods than they do cones.
Yes.
So there would be differences for different animals. And hell, there's some animals, most birds of prey can see heat. They basically have the capacity to see infrared. They can see heat.
Wow.
So we see nature has the capacity to do things that we can't, but it doesn't mean that we can't. It's just we haven't learned that experience. And all of this ascension energy of where we're just becoming a higher vibrational body is going to start naturally turning on all of these other aspects of our DNA and creating what we would perceive as six, seven, eight senses
Yes.
that we really don't know.
And that's
So
it.
you basically had spiritual LASIX yesterday. Is what it really comes down to.
Yeah. I'm
Is
curious.
there
I
some
can't wait
blocking?
to see what I start to see there because I think it'll really assist me personally and my clients because you just shut your eyes and you get in that space and you see like a
Yeah.
movie, which
Now
is
realize as that vision expands, there may be a lot more things that you see that you didn't know existed and that you really may not want to see.
I know. You're right. That always comes with it. It's not always good stuff you want to see, and so
Yep,
it's just it's like in tarot when the death card comes up. You also know that it's transformation. So it's like asking what you say, those questions. What is this here for me to interpret and learn from? It's not so literal all the time.
absolutely. Yeah, it's not literal, but it does. Yeah, you're right. It does kind of make more sense when you apply it to what we already know. We can
Yes.
start to expand upon something that we do have a knowledge base on, but to expand it, just like we want to expand our energies to be able to see truths.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can be challenging. I can tell you that because I never was a visual person intuitively.
Hmm.
And then once I started to open up into it, I was like, holy shit, I don't know if I want to see. It's like,
Right. Yes.
I want to see. And then you start seeing stuff and you're like, oh, I don't want to see that. It's like, wait a minute, I
No.
didn't know that existed. And then it can really, not that it can mess with the mind, but it does show you once again that this is all, like a matrix type of holographic existence.
It is.
And that's what we want to pull back too is see everything that we're experiencing. Everyone's starting to visually see these things now, and what's the purpose behind that? And I truly think it's to help wake people up from this experience. No one's coming to save us. That would defeat the purpose of
No.
why we came here. So if there's any recommendations is if it gets to the point where these things start to land,
Great point. Yeah.
do not get on a ship.
Yeah.
It's because no, it just doesn't seem to make any sense. That why now? If that's the case, if they're here to rescue us, why now?
Right.
versus
Why now? And one thing I've learned through all my personal development is we are our own rescue. So
yeah,
really get clear there because there's nowhere you need to go. That's what I've learned. Like I used to travel the world. Now I don't travel that much because when I really think about it, I was like, I don't need to go there to experience the real emotion that I'm looking for right now. I
yeah.
can do that here in my own home.
You
So,
can even
same kind of
meditate.
concept. We don't need to get on a ship to have the life we desire. We really need to do enough work with ourselves so that it can be with you in this space.
Absolutely. So what we can do for like a healing for this, because that's been kind of running in the background,
Good.
is if you, because this is a good weekend for this, especially with the full moon coming and what is coming with the solstice, is if there are certain things that you can't remember from your childhood or you're curious why something is happening, take the time to sit down with yourself and start writing some things down and trace it back like we talked about. So
Mhm.
even if you can start to identify your deeper childhood experiences and then be able to see what the benefit of that is,
Okay.
pause the video, go do this, do your homework, come back, turn the video on again or rewatch it. Because
Hmm.
I think what we can do is we can start to release things that are truly no longer serving us. Once we consciously see both sides and we understand why it happened or why we chose to create this, to experience this, then we can start letting this stuff go.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think that would be a good thing that we can do. And also just download to everyone to make sure that you know that there's no reason to be afraid of fear.
No.
It really, in that whole statement, the only thing to fear is fear itself,
Hmm.
that's not a true statement. As profound as what it was at the time, it's really the only thing to love is fear itself.
As we talked about that on one of our early
Yep.
podcasts.
So
It is.
that's a huge thing. If you know that you can see fear and it's just there like your 3-year-old self that just wants love, then you'll be able to experience it differently and not be in that reactionary fight or flight. That is vital too.
I think it was Anita Morjani, I think her name was. She was a woman who had like stage 4 cancer and she had a death experience, right? I think she was in a coma for 2 weeks and
Okay.
she woke up and she had no more cancer in her body. And she's an amazing author. I read her book and she's an amazing woman. And
Wow.
so, yeah, she's doing some cool podcasts on people's shows or interviews on people's shows now about the experience. And this was years ago too, but it's also helping me see that, Fred, with the fear piece. It's like we are told so many, especially if you're browsing Facebook, you're going to see a bunch of like fear mongering around, things we talked about earlier and everything. And it can feel like you're doomed, completely doomed, right? Well, she should have felt doomed, right? She was on her deathbed and then
Yeah.
she came back better than ever. And so it's stories like that that allow me, and it's so many people that I know didn't even die, but they had a health, like Joe Dispenza and another RJ Spina. He had a staph infection and paralysis, and he taught himself in 100 days how to walk again. He went into deep meditation and he didn't need any surgery. I mean, miracles can happen, right?
Yep.
So those are the people that I hold in my heart and know that there is nothing to fear. And the moment we start fearing it, it's when it has the most potential to be in our story, the bad
Yeah.
stuff. So I cannot recommend that. I think every episode we're going to point to that because fear is really the devil. I mean, the love piece that we're talking about is what softens it, though. But like fear itself, it's just like, don't go that path.
Yeah. It's a simple process, once again, but sometimes doing it,
Oh,
the first time you go to do it is going to be the challenge.
yeah.
But then once you do it start with something simple, don't look at your biggest trauma unless
Yes.
that's constantly being repeated to you. Start with something that's a little bit simpler and doesn't have as much energetic weight to it or as much trauma associated with it. So you can practice with something that's a little bit easier. And then you get used to that process and then it becomes more natural to do it.
Beautiful. So, what can we alchemize today?
Anything that people have realized what has happened in their life, why it's happened, and they're able to see both sides, but maybe it's still in their presence. Maybe it needs to be pulled out, like whatever you experienced yesterday.
Yeah, and
Um,
so my own vibration, let's leverage that today. Let's
sure.
leverage, that vibration. I'm going to offer it to everyone that watches this, just to share, because once we embody something, that's how quantum healing occurs. You can then very easily help someone install that new program, right? So let's
Yeah.
leverage the ability to, in this meditation or moment, have that
Mhm.
same cord pulled from your body, have that clear sight given to you, have whatever it is you desire that is keeping you from living your best life.
Absolutely. And like we said, anything else that's associated, let's start pulling these stuff. Let's start letting this stuff go. We're just about letting go of what we're not. We don't have to become anything. It's just let go of what's covering the truth and what we are, and that's coming out of that cocoon phase.
Yes.
All right, that sounds good.
Do it.
All right. Hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I saw so much clearing at the root chakra. Lots of
Nice.
just pulling out deep, deep roots for people that are watching this.
That's cool. I was seeing like a Hollywood movie. It was like this massive cocoon, and there was something inside the cocoon. It reminded me of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Alien, all these things where you have these pods, and there's something in there. And so, of course, the fear is, well, I don't want that thing to open up, so, but that's the cocoon phase. But it was like, there's nothing to fear, just open it and see what's presented for you. So it was kind of like cutting this cocoon on the outside and waiting to see what was going to come out of it. But then once it was cut and it started to open up, it was almost like instantly we were the ones inside the cocoon.
Mm,
And we weren't cutting something outside it. We were literally cutting the cocoon that we were in. So when the cocoon opened up, it was like a portal. It was like a whole new existence was on the other side of that. But it was that deeper fear that we create and think that it's like this monstrous thing versus it's really a freeing thing. And it's not that something that's going to attack you. It's something that you are creating to step into your truth.
So, how does that translate when you think of the caterpillar to the butterfly? We're not supposed to mess with the cocoon, right? Because the butterfly
Mhm.
cannot fly then. The wings won't strengthen. So, how does your visualization, you feel like, what advice, since we did the opposite almost in like the cutting of the.
It was almost like that's what happens is we feel that we're doing it to someone else, by
Okay.
cutting that open. And the fear was, I don't want this thing to open. I don't know what's inside, or what's going to happen. And if you do cut a cocoon open too soon, there's not going to be a butterfly or a
Right.
moth. It's going to disrupt that cycle. So I think it was more like to step into that fear and realize that there's never anything to truly fear. It's just the illusion of what we've been told and what we've been programmed with. So cutting something like that open is more of what we're here to be doing with ourselves, is
Mm.
to open that energy up with us inside when fear presents itself. Because when you open it, then you can see what its purpose was. What has it evolved into? and then that can open up a whole new experience for you.
Well, it's perfect metaphor for what just happened with me when I saw from an eye that I never really used that before. It was the opening up. It was everything.
Yeah, and it's the perfect time with the solstice coming, the lights returning. It literally is the ending of a cocoon phase. Once the light starts getting brighter each day, physically, that's the reflection of that cocoon's ready to be opened and to step into this new experience.
Well, and even some of the videos I saw, there's like 15 or 20 drones or whatever they are in the sky. But when you said the light's returning,
It is.
that's the light is returning. So, at a very basic level, let's lead with that as we end. The light is
Yes.
returning. So,
And that's what we're
well,
here
thank
for.
you,
We're the light
Fred.
bearers. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful weekend. And I guess we'll
Yes.
see you next week.
Enjoy the experience. Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about next
Oh,
week.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.